So in the realm of the eerie and unexplained, we sometimes stumble upon audio recordings that defy conventional explanation. One such spine-tingling instance unfolded during a 2016 live ghost hunting expedition captured by the YouTube channel Live Sci-Fi. And as the playback began, what unfolded was a perplexing revelation. A member of the team, Tim, while reviewing the recorded audio, noticed that they appeared to be communicating with a malevolent entity, possibly even the devil himself.
What?
Now, in a lot of cases, skeptics might be like, okay, no, faulty equipment, this could just be you picking up noises in an old house, which could be an easy, escape from the macabre. But this recording proves otherwise. And what added an even more hair-raising layer to this story was the presence of an unexpected character, Patches the dog. Animals are pretty susceptible to the unknown. So as the voice of the alleged devil resonated through the recording, Patches exhibited some very bizarre behavior.
Oh, sorry, Patch. Chill out.
The dog's erratic movements and strange reactions aligned perfectly with the moments when the sinister voice kind of emerged. And then the audio took a very dark and crazy turn. A chilling utterance emerged from the abyss of the recording, saying, "I am the devil." The words were clear, unsettling, and kind of thought-provoking. They kind of inject a profound sense of dread into the atmosphere.
Yeah, I am the devil.
The Live Sci-Fi folks found themselves in the midst of a haunting conundrum, and it's one that left them kind of stumped. This story kind of prompted a lot of questions. They're like, okay, was this a genuine communication with an otherworldly entity? Maybe it was the power of suggestion, maybe it was collective fear, maybe this was a hoax, but I don't think so. It seemed pretty legit to me. You let me know your theory in the comments. This next story of a demonic encounter kind of took a lot of folks to the limits of their understanding, and challenged their perception of reality. This unsettling episode unfolded in 1999, when an individual known as Mortis the Wizard accompanied a pastor to a house plagued by, demonic possession. The pastor, doubling as a demonologist, issued a very careful warning to Mortis before their fateful visit. Just brace yourself for what might happen here, okay? This one's quite bad. Are you ready? Mortis, though inexperienced in such matters, was like, I got this. I'm ready to go. Well, the recording that emerged from that ominous night is nothing short of chilling. In it, a malevolent presence, some sort of demon, roused directly in Mortis' face. The demon's words are laced with profanity and violent threats, and it's a lot of stuff that we can't see on the internet. But we do have a smidgen of the recording that we can play, so listen to it now.
It's about with other people, you can get off and do something decent.
See what I mean? So what sets this case apart is kind of how disturbing the auditory anomaly is. Amid the, plethora of sinister utterances, you also got a series of belching noises, which, yeah, those are kind of common with demons, but it doesn't make them any less gross. Astonishingly, Mortis claimed that these eerie sounds didn't require any specialized equipment for being heard. So there was no EVPs, no nothing. This demon was speaking plain as day. Well, it's time to chat about another terrifying place, the Sally House. Built in the mid-1800s, commissioned by the Finney family and home to Dr. Charles Finney, who practiced medicine from the house, he used the bottom floor for his practice, and also used another bedroom as an office. Everybody else lived upstairs until they moved out because they needed more space, and this place is haunted by the ghost of a girl who died there. According to the legend, a gal named Sally was brought to the doctor's house by her mom for severe abdominal pain. So he's like, okay, let's give you some anesthesia and emergency surgery, because he's like, it's gonna be the appendix. Sadly, he started the procedure before the anesthesia kicked in, and as he continued doing surgery, Sally was shrieking because she felt the pain. Turns out the procedure sadly ended up killing her, with her last memories of a man whom she believed was harming her. Though the house had long been known to be haunted, Sally's haunting grew ominous in 1993 when the house was rented to a young couple. Their dog seemed to growl at nothing, especially near the upstairs, areas. Things began to take a violent turn though when fires broke out in the house. There was a series of sinister attacks on the husband. The operating area would get icy cold, and when the man entered, objects would visibly move towards him. He could feel scratches upon his chest or his abdomen. But the ghost never attacked the wife or descendants. Multiple former tenants have alleged paranormal activity here. It has been especially reported that male residents and visitors have been scratched until liquid poured from their skin, and Sally's been dubbed the man-hating ghost. Also, I guess she likes running up and down the stairs leading to the second floor, because a lot of folks feel her presence there. The basement of the floor has a big smudge on the middle, where apparently once somebody put a pentagram there, used it for demonic rituals and sacrifices, and psychics have confirmed the presence of spirits dwelling in the home and have actually communicated with them. So there's been a lot of skeptics that have left as believers. Visits by paranormal investigators have provided audio, video, and photographic proof that there's something going on. That's how we have the audio today. Thank you, Live Sci-Fi, once again, because they called this place the scariest place they've ever been.
Who touched my leg?
Well, here's a location that really shouldn't shock anybody by being demonic. Aleister Crowley's house. I think he had a lot of them, but this was his property over in Scotland. And we do have some sort of hellscape footage, which we'll play now before I forget to mention it. Known formally as the Bullskin Hours. This was Aleister's home in 1899 to seclude himself and perform magic, from the Book of Sacred Magic of Abraham the Mage, which he discovered as a member of the British secret occult society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And it was during his time living here that he became famous for his magic, his occult practices, both around Scotland and around the world. Sometime during this period, Golden Dawn leader Samuel MacGregor Mathers invited him to Paris for advancement in the secret initiatory group, forcing Crowley to abandon the ritual. So allegedly, he left without dispelling the 12 kings and dukes of hell he had summoned. So a lot of locals blame the house's unlucky history on the evil spirits that were just left behind. Crowley himself, never one to admit a mistake, even conceded that the rituals he had performed at this home had gotten out of hand, cause that's totally not terrifying at all. Many other strange tales follow the ownership of the home. In 1965, an army major took his own life, only for the housekeeper to discover him moments later. In the 1960s, this place became one of the sites to the Cadco affair, also known as the Great Sausage Scandal, a bizarre tale of how Dennis Lorraine and actor George Sanders managed to embezzle millions of pounds in government grants under the pretense of meeting a national shortage of pork products. There was also another dark celebrity owner, Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page. He didn't spend a lot of time here. He gifted it to somebody else, Malcolm Dent. Dent reported strange and unexplained creaks, groans, and various ghostly apparitions, and became kind of annoyed by all the fans who were like, "Ooh, this house is cool." Later, owners tried to dismiss any notions of hauntings or witchcraft, but tragedy continued to prove otherwise. In 2015, the residents of the house returned from a shopping trip to find it completely in flames. There was no injuries, because everything was empty when it ignited. Yeah, not gonna visit there. And here's another doozy, the Lizzy Borden B&B in Massachusetts. And this is without a doubt the most famous haunted bed and breakfast in New England. It's known for doors opening and closing on their own, coupled with a mysterious floral scent that some say are signs of the Borden spirits. For those unfamiliar with the story, or the jump rope rhyme, police accused Borden of brutally killing her father and stepmother with a weapon in 1892, and she was acquitted of that later in the year. Fundamentally, the case was about whether or not somebody like Lizzy could have committed these brutal crimes. And in 1893, a jury of 12 men were like, nope, she couldn't, which produced a unanimous verdict of not guilty. No one else was charged in the death, and despite ostracism from other residents, Borden spent the remainder of her life in Fall River. She died around the age of 66. Now, some people claim to have heard noises of creaking, footsteps, unexplained laughter, and they've even seen ghostly faces appearing on a wall in the basement. In 2019, the folks from the YouTube channel Glam and Gore spent the night at the bed and breakfast, because they're like, let's see if we can make contact with some spirits. The team spent a fair amount of time seemingly talking to Lizzy's stepmother, Abby, aka the lady who had her head caved in. They asked Abby if John Morse, who was a family member and a guest of the Bordens, had killed her, and somebody said, yep, it was John, and the voice kind of sounded demonic. While we might not know who exactly the voice belonged to, it's still pretty shocking to hear. A lot of folks say this house is haunted by everybody. Abby, her husband, and a lot of other ghosties.
In at number 5, we have first ever recording. The first ever recording was done in 1860 by a phonograph, which was the leading edge sound-based technology at the time. It could transcribe sound to a visible medium, but had no means to play back the sound after it was recorded. 17 years before Thomas Edison invented the phonograph, Parisian inventor Edouard Leon Scott de Martinville made this recording on the what he called the phonograph machine. Scott had looked to the invention of photography and wondered if something similar could be done with sound waves, focused as he was on improving stenography. And his invention took in sound vibrations through a diaphragm, which moved a stylus against a rotating cylinder covered in lampblack. What was left was a wiggly line in a concentric circle. On March 9, 2008, a 10-second clip of an eerie, unidentifiable voice was discovered in the midst of a historian research. Unplayable for more than a century, the recording was only recently brought to light by new audio technology. American audio historians discovered Scott's scribbles and turned them to the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and a software called Irene. The software was designed to extract sounds from wax cylinders without touching the delicate surfaces, and they eventually were able to bring history to life and hear what the first ever recording in history sounded like. This recording consists of high-pitched, creepy, mysterious, scary sounds that you'd think came from a horror movie or paranormal investigation. On the recording, recording, it is believed Scott is actually singing a snippet from the French folk song Au clair de la lune. It is a true test of time and how far we have come with technology, but I would suggest not listening to it due to its very eerie, creepy and ghost-like aspects. Coming in at number 4, we have Jonestown tapes. The audio of the Jonestown incident is nicknamed the Death Tape, which was made in Jonestown by cult leader Jim Jones and followers on November 1978. The People's Temple was originally formed in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1955 by the charismatic Jim Jones. Through preaching and his Christian revival movements, he quickly gained followers. But after receiving considerable criticism in Indiana for his integrationist views, the temple moved to Redwood, California in 1965. In early 1970s, the temple opened other branches in LA and San Francisco, would eventually move its headquarters to San Fran. Finally, in the summer of 1977, Jones and several hundred temple members chose to move the practice to a remote location in Guyana to form a compound for all members to work, live, and build their own community. In the beginning, the People's Temple was a happy place for followers, but soon many wanted to leave and go home to the US. Jones, the self-proclaimed messiah, was abusive, controlling, and his treatment of his followers were less than humane. And in November of 1978, things became deadly. Jim Jones led hundreds of his followers into taking their own lives. Many of the Jones followers willingly ingested a poison-laced punch, while others were forced to do so at gunpoint. The final death toll at Jonestown that day was 909. After the tragic event of Jonestown, more than 1,000 recordings were found, including sermons, meetings, People's Temple propaganda, private conversations, and even the recording of the entire night that they took their lives. The tape began with sounds of church music and children talking and crying, which sounds innocent enough, but slowly gets more sinister. Jones states, I quote, "I tried to give you a good life. In spite of all I tried to do, a handful of our people who are alive had made our lives impossible," which he was referring to the members trying to leave and escape Guyana. Jones continued saying, "I propose that we not take our lives, but a revolutionary act." The tape continued and you can hear screaming as members started drinking the Kool-Aid, and you can hear Jones arguing with members to take the poison. After Jim speaks his final words and the poison was settling in, you can clearly hear a faint demonic growl by demonic chants. He goes on for almost an hour and tells the story of a truly sad and grisly event. The audio recorded in Jonestown wasn't just a lifeline, but a direct line to death too, and it's skin-crawling to listen to, so you should avoid it at all costs. In at number 3, the sounds of Saturn. Space is one of the most unknown things and has many unexplored secrets that are mysterious to us humans. We continue to research it and try to see what's happening outside of our planet, and the Cassini spacecraft is a spaceship that was sent to Saturn in 2004, trying to explore and get more answers of these other planets. It was the first spacecraft to orbit Saturn. There were recordings taken from the 2004 expedition, and there were intense radio detections from the planet. These signals have been compressed to become audible to the human ear. 2 researchers described these findings of Saturn's radio emissions as they could be mistaken for a Halloween soundtrack. Saturn's radio emissions were first reported in 1979 by Don Gurnett and Dr. Bill Kurth. He used an instrument on the International Sun-Earth Explorer spacecraft in Earth's orbit. Kurth said that despite their best efforts, scientists still haven't agreed on a theory to fully explain the phenomenon. Kurth also stated that it was a bit disorientating. We weren't hearing what we expected to hear, which is extremely eerie. Also in 2010, Cassini first detected a storm on Saturn that is 8 times the surface area of Earth and is 500 times larger than the biggest storm previously seen by Cassini during several months from 2009 to 2010. Scientists studied the sounds of the new storms, lightning strikes, and analyzed images taken, and George Fisher stated, "We have been observing storms on Saturn for almost 7 years, so tracking a storm so different from the others put us at the edge of our seats." Data from Cassini's radio and plasma wave science instruments showed a lightning flash rate as much as 10 times more frequent than during other storms monitored since Cassini's arrival in Saturn in 2004. At its most intense, the storm generated more than 10 lightning flashes per second. Only problem is the recording kind of sounds like an audio track from a sci-fi horror movie. The result was an unsettling series of crackles, whirls, and snarls that sound quite literally out of this world. It's shocking to think we know so little about space, and one thing is for sure, you should never listen to these creepy recordings. In at number 2, we have original Nightstalker voicemail. The East Area attacker, or known also as the original Nightstalker, was a man named Joseph James D'Angelo, who was was an American serial killer and burglar who committed at least 13 murders, 50 attacks, and 120 burglaries across California between 1974 and 1986. This man caused havoc and caused fear to many surrounding areas and was finally caught in 2018 and sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole in 2020. D'Angelo is believed to have taunted and threatened both victims and police in obscene phone calls and possibly written communications. In March of 1977, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office received 3 calls from a man claiming to be the East Area attacker. The first 2 calls received at 4:15 and 4:30 were identical and ended with the caller laughing and hanging up. The final call came in at 5 p.m. with the caller taunting the police and saying, "I'm the East Side attacker and I have my next victim already stalked and you guys can't catch me." Which is truly chilling, but not only did he call the police, he also called to taunt his victims. During the 1977 Christmas season, a previous victim received a phone call that she attributed to her attacker. The caller said, "Merry Christmas, it's me again." Another voicemail was left on the answering machine of his first known victim, and it repeatedly says, "Gonna kill you," over and over again in slow and low tone. The original Nightstalker's last known call was in 2001 when a victim received a call from him and asked, "Remember when we played?" The original Nightstalker was known to often leave horrifying messages on his victims' answering machines before committing these brutal attacks, or taunting them after their attacks. These continuous calls and voicemails will give you nightmares and you should never listen to them. In at number 1 we have Exorcism of Anneliese. Anna Elisabeth Anneliese Michel was a German woman who was diagnosed with depression and epileptic psychosis at the age of 16. She was treated at a psychiatric hospital unsuccessfully and her symptoms worsened. At age 20, Anneliese had depressive thoughts. She had seizures, hallucinations, heard voices, and had violent reactions to religious words and objects. She was also growling, self-harming, eating insects, and drinking her own urine. After trying every medication and psychiatric treatment, nothing had helped Anneliese. Her family started looking for other ways to help their daughter. Anneliese and her family were very religious and wondered if her health issues could possibly stem from demonic possession. The family met with one priest and he mentioned that Anneliese didn't look like an epileptic, so they asked the Catholic Church for an exorcism. When the church rejected the family, they found a local bishop that said he would perform an exorcism on their daughter in total secrecy. In 1975, 2 priests began performing exorcisms on Anneliese, and eventually she became malnourished and stopped eating, and the exorcisms kept happening. A total of 67 exorcisms were performed on her over a 10-month period before her unfortunate death at age 23. Anneliese died of malnutrition and dehydration. At the time of her death, she was 68 pounds, was covered in bruises, had fractured teeth, and could not get out of her bed on her own. Once people caught wind of this crazy incident, the priest and Anneliese's parents were charged with negligent homicide and went to trial, eventually only getting 3 years probation. But the worst part of all of this is that the exorcisms performed were filmed. In the recordings, you can hear Anneliese screaming, growling, barking, crying, and arguing in different demonic voices. Priests Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz argued that Anneliese's demonic possession was serious. They said her demons had been identified as Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Belial, Legion, Hitler, and Nero, and that the exorcisms were eventually successful because she died right after the demons were driven out of her. In addition to the media attention in Germany surrounding Anneliese Michel's death, her story was immortalized in the horror movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose in 2005, and Anneliese The Exorcist tapes in 2011, which were also loosely based on her story. In at number 5 we have Aztec Death Whistle. In 1999, in the Temple of Tlatelolco in Mexico, archaeologists discovered a skeleton of a 20-year-old sacrificial victim who was clutching onto 2 skull-shaped figurines. Historians investigated the objects and initially thought the clay sculptures were just simply toys, so they catalogued and stored them in a museum warehouse. Years later, the clay sculptures were found again, and someone had blown into the device, and the sound that came from it was a terrifying screaming sound. The sound has redefined historians' understanding of pre-Hispanic instrument and rituals, but it's truly haunting, and many wonder why these instruments were even made. Other archaeologists have found other instruments made of clay, animal skins, seashells, and other materials at Aztec and Mayan sites across Mexico, but nothing scarier than the death whistle. There is still a huge debate between many about what exactly this instrument was used for. Some theories from scholars believe the skull-shaped clay instruments found were used to recreate the screech of the howling wind due to them being found in a temple dedicated to the wind god Eacatl. The instrument was named the Whistle of Death because other theorists believe they were used to help guide sacrificial victims on their journey to the afterlife, and another theory believes that they were used to scare enemies during battles with its horrific sounds. Researchers have examined these instruments and played them together at the the same time, and it's believed to evoke a storm, because the combined whistles create an intense frequency that echoes throughout, giving the sound a greater range. Hopefully you aren't in the area when this happens, because the sound is truly from a horror movie. Some experts even believe that the Aztecs used these sound vibrations from the instruments to treat illnesses due to some of the whistles producing such a low sound that the human ear can't even recognize. These sounds are believed to have a dramatic impact on heart rates and states of consciousness. Many indigenous groups use the instruments in their festivals and special events, but it's a truly terrifying sound. You can even go on Etsy and get a replica of these death whistles, but the sounds that come from this instrument is spine-chilling. In at number 4 we have Operation Wandering Soul, Ghost Tape number 10. During the Vietnam War was a propaganda campaign and psychological warfare exercised by the US forces. The Vietnamese believed that the dead must be buried in their homeland, otherwise their souls will wander aimlessly in pain and suffering, and if the person isn't properly buried then their souls will constantly wander, thus becoming a wandering soul. The US military used this against the Vietnamese by creating eerie, haunting sounds and voices that impersonated the dead. It was an attempt to increase distraction and deception from Viet Cong forces and weaken their morale. The US engineers spent weeks recording eerie sounds and altered voices which tried to impersonate the slain Viet Cong soldiers. They even brought in South Vietnamese soldiers to record the audio sayings over the tape to make it more authentic. The tape was named Ghost Tape number 10 and was broadcast on loudspeakers during the nighttime in areas of Viet Cong activity like in tunnels, and helicopters were also deployed to broadcast the bone-chilling ghostly recordings, and even boats were driving up and down the river playing the ghost tapes. These ghost tapes were sounds relating to many different types of ghosts in the folklore and culture in Vietnam. All the different ghosts had different names and meanings, like Ma Cho, which dealt with the ghost of dogs, and the tightening knot ghost was used in these tapes during the war to convince the Vietnamese troops to take their own lives after whispering the words Coco, which translates to neck in Vietnamese. The US even used some North Viet Cong soldiers to talk into the loudspeakers to convince the others to give in and join them. These tapes were extremely loud, broadcasting all over, and were very hard to ignore. The sense of torture and emotion instilled in the ghost voices created are truly frightening, horrifying, and blood-curdling, and you should never listen to them, especially knowing the sinister story behind them. In at 3 we have the Wow Signal. The Wow Signal was discovered on August 15, 1977 by the Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope and created a debate of if this is the proof of extraterrestrial intelligence. A few days after the recording, astronomer Jerry R. Eman was going through the 72-second recording. He was so impressed by his finding, he circled the signal's intensity and wrote the comment "wow" beside it, which is how the famous signal was named. The large telescope was designed by radio astronomer John Krause and was built by university staff, volunteers and part-time laborers in the 1960s. It was constructed by funds from the National Science Foundation. It was made to be the most accurate radio map sky ever, and to this day astronomers around the world recognize and still question the wow signal. Many different hypotheses and theories have come out trying to explain the origin of this recording, including natural human-made sources or even from a comet, but none have confirmed an explanation of this haunting signal. After the discovery of this mysterious recording, NASA agreed to fund a largely volunteer-staffed effort to search the sky for radio signals from technologically advanced aliens. Because it was such a long recording, that's how it was able to be observed by Big Ear, but hasn't been detected since and remains the strongest candidate for an alien radio transmission ever detected. The wow signal is so eerie because no one has been able to confirm where or who this creepy recording came from. Even in pop culture, it's been featured in music videos, documentaries, and even songs. In at 2 we have the Forest Grove sound. Forest Grove is a small city located in Oregon. The city gained a lot of attention in February of 2016 when one resident recorded a very unusual noise. It happened in the middle of the night. The high-pitched noise was heard by the entire area. Dave Niemeyer managed to record a video where the noise could be heard and shared this to Facebook. It quickly started to gain attention and everyone wanted to know what created the weird sound. Each news outlet reported on the sound, describing it in various ways. The Washington Post described it being like a giant flute played off pitch, car brakes, or a stream whistle. NBC said it was akin to a bad one-note violin solo broadcast over a microphone with non-stop feedback. The sound lasted for several minutes before ending as mysteriously as it started. The Department of Forestry and Fire Department began to investigate the noise. The residents feared it could be dangerous as no one would be able to determine the cause or location of the sound. The Department of Forestry determined the noise was not a result of their equipment, as many had suspected. Approximately 200 calls were made to the police department during this time from worried residents, trying to determine what the noise could have been. These guesses range from aliens to Bigfoot and even frogs. No one could understand what had happened, and the fear was growing. The police and fire department put out a statement that the noise was not a safety hazard and the people were not to worry. The police closed their case after no information could be found about the noise. Andrew Dawes, a professor of physics, even visited the town to map out locations where the noise was heard. He hoped that this would help him pinpoint where it came from. His tests were inconclusive, so what was the noise? Where did it come from? The residents of Forest Grove may never know. Some believe the noise is cursed and you should avoid listening to it at all costs. And finally, in at number 1 we have the Lincolnshire Poacher. The Lincolnshire Poacher first appeared from the mid-1960s. It was a powerful British shortwave number station that is believed to have been transmitted from Cyprus. No one knows who broadcasted the signal or from where. It gained its name due to using the English folk song The Lincolnshire Poacher as an interval signal. Some believe the station was broadcasting cursed recordings to those unlucky enough to stumble onto it. Some believe it was operated by the British Secret Intelligence Service. When the interval signal was not playing, you could hear a pre-recording of an English accented woman reading 5 numbers. The final number was read at a higher pitch. Some believe this was created to send secret messages to undercover agents in different countries. They would simply need to listen and decode the messages. This was not the only station known to do this. During the Cold War, there were a number of stations built and broadcasting for the same reason. The difference with the Lincolnshire Poacher is that it did not stop when the war did. Most of them went radio silent as soon as the war ended, confirming they were indeed sending secret messages. But this one continued to broadcast for 2 decades longer than any other. Some believe that while the numbers were sending messages to agents, it was the English folk song that was itself cursed. Some believe that they unintentionally broadcast this cursed audio all over the world. The government and MI6 have never confirmed or admitted that they ran the signal, and no information has been unearthed about it. In June 2008, the signal finally stopped. Since then, nothing has been heard from the Lincolnshire Poacher. It might forever be a mystery. Today, the folk song is widely avoided, as it's believed to carry a curse that infected many during the time it was broadcast from the station.